Hi, everyone. Welcome to Soulprint Intuitive Tarot. Thank you very, very much for being here. I so appreciate your support. The comments are lovely, the thumbs up, the shares. It's really wonderful. So I thank you for that. All right. So this big bill, I couldn't think of a word that wasn't sort of swearing. So um, has gone through. So a couple of things to just be mindful of, things I want to kind of take a quick look at. One, as far as I know, the most recent count is that 10 American-based companies, large companies, um, have migrated parts of their businesses to Canada. Coca-Cola, Visa. So when these big companies start, and there's a couple of really big tech companies or a component company, when big companies like that start shifting significant parts and really quietly, right? Really quietly, there's no fanfare, there's no press releases, it's just this quiet shift. And it's going everywhere. There's stuff going into Halifax, Montreal, Toronto, Calgary, Vancouver. So they're spreading it out. So what you have is companies realigning themselves because they can no longer trust that the United States is not going to continue to be so volatile, and that with these tariffs, some things are getting crazy expensive. And the Canadian government is not stupid. And they're offering all kinds of lovely incentives and tax breaks and research and development grants, all kinds of stuff, because that's what a smart government does. So you have that going on, kind of in the background. And then the other thing you have going on is a kind of quiet revolt against 45 and his voters. So I understand now that a significant portion, I think it's of the Haitian population, wants to redo their votes. They don't like what happened as a result of it. If nothing else, and there's a lot else, but if nothing else, this is a clear indicator of what happens when people vote with their bias or their bigotry or their not paying attention, their inattention to what's going on around them. And they simply vote that way because they always have, because somebody told them they should, and they're not mindful of what's going on. Now, don't get me wrong. Apparently, among Republicans, he still has something like a 75 or something percent approval rating. Of course, that was before this BBB thing came into effect. Let's see how they feel when they start to realize that, yeah, you know what, the whole country's going to be affected, but disproportionately the red states are going to be more impacted than blue. And I'm not sure why that is. I don't know whether that has more to do with sort of the populations, or it has to do with the prosperity of the state itself. So if it's not a super prosperous state, then they would be relying on things like SNAP and Medicare, right? I saw a little thing the other day, and it was, oh crap, what is that guy's name? He's the guy that, he always has these weird little sort of antiquated sayings that he says. He's from somewhere in the South. I want to say Texas, or I want to say Kentucky, but I'm pretty sure I'm wrong. But anyways, he made the statement of, he thinks that those lazy people should just get off their ass and go get a job. I believe he was talking about Medicaid coverage. Well, the vast majority of people on Medicaid have traumatic brain injuries, schizophrenia, Parkinson's disease, et cetera, et cetera. Does he not care? I think he just cares more about himself. Let's take a look. The only way I can address all of this is I'm going to take a look at what we can anticipate between now and the end of the summer season with I'm going seasonally, so the middle of September, the 20th or 21st of September is when summer officially ends in this part of the hemisphere. Let's take a look, shall we? U.S. trajectory rest of summer, U.S. trajectory rest of summer, U.S. trajectory for the rest of summer. I don't mean to make them tongue twisters, but sometimes it just sort of happens on me. Here we go. Alrighty. So, the Nine of Cups. This is a manifestation card. And the card actually has two meanings right now. One is, that old, be careful what you wish for, you might just get it. That's part of it. That's part of what a certain segment of voters are now starting slowly to realize and will continue to realize. And that's unfortunate, but it is what happens. The other meaning of the card, of course, is a successful manifestation, abundance, happiness, etc. And that is what is in the back of the minds of Republicans in Congress who are trying to protect their job as House Rep, as Senator. These are the people who truly have become unbelievably self-focused, right? If it's good for them, it's good enough. And that's an unfortunate thing because part of what's happening is the rest of the world is looking and will continue to look as things continue to spiral over the next, I don't know, what is that, 8 weeks or so? More like 10 weeks, I guess, come to think of it. The rest of the world is looking at this and saying, oh my God. And this is the thing. If you think for 1 second that world leaders in democratic countries are not watching what's going on and going, oh, wow. Not only is this guy hell-bent on being a dictator, but he's also hell-bent on, he's following the playbook, if you will, of Hitler. And that should terrify anybody with any sort of a grasp of history. But the people in the United States in power, they're just looking at themselves. They're looking at, they become so America first. America is wonderful, everything we do. And it's like, listen, I've got no problem with a company or even a government that says, We want to expand our manufacturing industry because that's really good, middle class paying jobs. It's good money. But you don't do that to spite your ear, right? I mean, um, y- you don't stop something or tear something down until you've got a replacement in place. So shutting manufacturing down without its replacement um, is not so smart. So a really good example of that is the CHIPS program that Biden established that brought a lot of jobs to a lot of people. Well, Trump canceled that program. You know where that program went? Straight north to Canada. There's a logic in that. You're going to listen, over the summer months, emotions are going to be running really high. All right. They just are. People are going to be reacting, and emotions are going to be, flaring, and politicians are going to say the wrong things, and it upsets people. They're going to say the wrong things because they're so wrapped up in their little crazy world. Um, you know, like whatever her name was, who said, "Well, we're all going to die." Like, what is that? So anticipate a summer of intense emotions, not only around you, but honestly within yourself, because there are things that are shifting and changing. And nobody likes it when those things that we perceive as secure and foundational shift. But sometimes they have to draw in the new, to bring in a higher vibration, to bring in a better concept, way of doing things. But it tends to make us rocky. We don't feel safe and we don't feel secure. Added to that, you have people that are going to be impacted by some of these cuts sooner rather than later. A lot of them are sort of strategic, right? The SNAP program, which it's interesting, that got implemented between the end of school and the beginning of school. So people are going to have a couple of months where either they're not aware of it or frankly they're not overly concerned about it until September rolls around, and all of a sudden it's like, oh no, how do we replace this thing that we counted on, we depended on? The best I can tell you is, breathe deep. um, it- it- do what you can to keep yourself calm. Because why? Well, because ramped up emotions find each other and they amplify, right? I mean, that's how you end up with riots, right? Like a nucleus sort of expands and starts to infect everybody around them. Um, so the calmer that you can keep yourself in sort of the sea of chaos is a good thing. All right. It's going to come down to people becoming really concerned about how they can afford to live, literally. Um, this is going to impact lower income people, disabled people. I don't think the um, wealthy care. They don't certainly go to sleep at night worrying about how they're going to pay the rent or the mortgage. Continue to expect sleight of hand behavior coming out of the government. Either things they're not saying or things they're flat out lying about or misinterpreting. it's going to be a summer where you almost can't take anything at face value. Okay. So, again, it's the same thing that I know I'm saying it, and I'm sure other readers are saying it. Pay enough attention so you know what's going on around you, but don't immerse yourself in it because it will make you nuts. Okay. Because there's going to be all this sort of shifting and changing and kind of that stuff going on. And more people are going to realize that what happened was the poor and the middle class are going to be paying for the wealthy. And that's really sad. And I mean, I'm sure to some degree that goes on, sort of globally. But what's going on in the United States, it has become so apparent. Now, if there is a rainbow in this, and this is the Ten of Cups, and you're thinking, well, how the hell can the Ten of Cups be a rainbow? Well, let me tell you. Because the very people that wanted those tax breaks are going to continue to face boycotts. They're going to continue to face a disinterest in their product. And certainly globally, I mean, here in Canada, the Buy Canadian movement is as strong can be. And it's interesting because you wander through the grocery store, right? And you see people pick up something, flip it around, look at it, and literally put it right back on the counter or on the shelf, and then look at the next one because they're looking for something that isn't made in the United States. We're really good with Canada made. We're even really good with, other countries making it. So slowly but surely, they're going to feel the impact of it. And they're going to become targets. And, again, it's an interesting thing what happens when you have a few people boycotting something. It's quite another when you have millions across the country saying, we're not going to use your service because you're lining your pockets and our pockets are empty. Where does all this end up? Well, it ends up with a few things. One, in some ways, this is an ending to usher in a new beginning. Then you have to remember and realize, though, is that people are reacting so intensely to what's going on that by time the 2027 sorry, sometimes your 2026 midterms come along. People are already going to be paying such a price, even though some of the stuff isn't scheduled to take part or take place until later. They're going to start to be feeling that impact. And they're going to be desperate to create a sense of balance and justice back in their country. Because unfortunately, they have had a look at what happens when you give few so much power. So you have justice, you have the hermit, and you have the Hierophant. And that's where you're at. Do I think that do I think that that's going to be sudden? It's not. It's going to be grassroots. It's going to continue to grow slowly, and neighbors talking to neighbors or family or friends, and you're going, oh my God, like I literally can't afford this, that, or the other. And I could before, and now I can't. And you have all of these jobs that have been lost. And all of those people looking to find work in a country that is diminishing and downsizing everything and is certainly not ready for this grand expansion of manufacturing that seems to be, being envisioned. Not going to happen because there isn't um, there isn't enough time. You don't just snap your fingers and put up a manufacturing plant, right? General Motors, another one that has shifted, and they're not shifting their whole countries, make no mistake, but they're shifting significant components of their companies. So all of a sudden, you now have more emphasis on pulling away important components of your company and shifting them. There's going to be a lot of blame going on, right? Trump's going to say, they didn't tell me, I didn't know that. And, politicians are going to, somebody really should ask these guys if they actually read the damn bill. But there's going to be a lot of friction and squabbling going on. And ultimately, by the time the fall rolls around, you're going to see your government in a really defensive position because they're going to be judged and they're not going to like the feeling of being judged because they've been sold a romanticized bill of goods. All right. So long and short, here we are. It's southern and the northern hemisphere. Let's do our level best to enjoy it as best we can. And always remember that when you're feeling really ungrounded, literally planting your bare feet on earth is a really amazing grounding device, okay? So when you're feeling shaky and wobbly, go outside and take off your shoes and get down with your feet in the grass. Breathe deep. It will help. It's going to be bumpy. And all you can do is focus on the country, the government that you want. Not what you have, not even what they're doing, but what you want. And you start figuring out and you start working towards supporting that. So whether you become involved with your neighborhood politics, whatever it is, everybody needs to do their part. Not only will it give you a sense of community, and that's helpful, but it will make you feel like you are doing something actively productive. And there's a billion ways to do that. Everything from visualization and prayer all the way to, I guess, running for office. All right. Don't forget to put your questions in the comment section below for Pendulum Friday. I will see you then. Have a good and safe week. And again, let's just continue to send good energy and light to the people in Texas who have been so unbelievably devastated. And again, it's going to make you wonder how long it's going to take before they go, wait a minute, what happened to our National Weather Service that was supposed to alert us to this stuff? Oh, he decimated that. Okay. Take care, people. Be well. We'll see you soon.